end of the year is a really good time to review to see if you're sort of on track with what you think you're spending. Food is one that can creep up on us. What small changes you might make to achieve your goals, to review. Maybe you can start putting aside even $25, $50 more a month into retirement. The end of the year is also a really good time to think about planning ahead for if you're going to take a vacation in the summer, to think about how are you going to pay for that, and maybe start getting a plan for setting some money aside. It can also be a really good time to reflect on how we use our time.
As one year ends and a new one begins, it's common to reflect on where we stand, both personally and professionally. A Kansas State University associate professor in the Department of Family Studies and Human Services says it's also a good time to think about where we stand financially. On today's Sound Living, tips for measuring financial health and some goal-setting strategies for the coming year. Sound Living is a weekly public affairs program produced by Research and Extension at Kansas State University. I'm Jeff Wichman. K-State Research and Extension Specialist in Financial Management Elizabeth Kish says that reflection is always the first step in changing behavior, and that the CFPB, Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, has developed a financial well-being scale that uses a series of questions to help score overall financial health.
If you're able to handle major expenses, if you feel like you're securing your financial future, are you concerned that the money you have or will save won't last? And that kind of gets toward longer term planning. How your money situation makes you feel, if it feels like you'll never have the things you want in life, or if you feel like you're really on track to getting what you want. If giving a gift for a wedding, a birthday, or another occasion would put a strain on your finances in that month. Do you have money left over at the end of the month? And the most basic goal for personal financial planning is spend less than you earn. And so if you regularly are spending more than you earn, that means you're either taking money out of savings in the best case scenario, or you're using credit. And so end of the year might be an opportunity to think about that.
Kind of like the idea of a questionnaire or a quiz, because it makes you think about things that you maybe don't think about, or it kind of highlights the fact that, gosh, I do have this problem. I could do better in this area. I want to work on this.
Right. And this well-being scale is kind of interesting because the way it's scored, the average score for Americans is like in the mid-50s. And sometimes we think, well, that's bad because in school that wouldn't be a very good grade. But on the other hand, we're looking at how Americans in general score. And the highest score that people get seems to be in the 60s, which again, people might say, oh, that's not that great. I mean, I'm going for 90 and above, right? But I would say don't really worry about the score so much as just how you feel. Use the well-being scale as an opportunity to reflect, as we said. And if it motivates you to think about what changes you might make, then you might think about another resource that K-State Research and Extension has that really challenges people to think about what are your goals, but start with what is your vision. And sometimes if we sort of take that time to do we might call it daydreaming. Some people I think call it blue sky thinking, just to really think about, okay, at some point we have to get real, but the beginning of this is if I could do anything, if resources were not necessarily an issue, what might I want my life to look like, and how might I want my relationship with money to be? Because a lot of times we're sort of rigid in our thinking, and we think, oh, money is really what the issue is. But a lot of times it's not just about the money. It's about how we use our time. It's about the people that we interact with on a regular basis. And those things may sort of influence how we look at money. If we change those, sometimes the way we look at money can be different as well. So I guess I would encourage people at this time of year to maybe think about this CFPB financial well-being scale, but then think about, take it to the next step, which is what sort of goals might you want to set. And we think about often short-term, medium-term, and long-term goals. Short-term is usually 3 to 6 months, medium-term maybe 6 months to a year, and longer-term is something maybe over a year. There's different ways to describe those categories so you can also come up with your own, whatever short term is for you. And then think about how you're actually spending your money, what you might need to change or what you might want to change in order to spend your money differently to help you achieve your goals. Because really, in addition to spending less than we earn and saving or investing the difference, the idea is that we want to use our money in ways that support our goals. Because otherwise, why do we need money?
And really doing this exercise also allows you to find some places where you can take maybe from your lunch budget or your coffee budget and move it into something that is part of that vision.
And it doesn't have to be big to make a difference. Start small and see how it works. And then as you have successes, sometimes then we can make bigger changes.
We want to always still talk about that emergency fund, that savings that you have that you can access in case of an emergency.
Right. And that gets to really some of the well-being things is that we, first of all, know that in the case of an emergency, we have some confidence that we could meet that emergency. And as we've talked about before, many Americans do not have those funds. And so then when something happens, they either need to use credit or they need to rely on friends and family or other sources. And so even if you don't have a big amount, for example, personally, I'm just waiting for our refrigerator to go out. It's old now. It's like 17 years old or something. And so it's going to go. And
it's on borrowed time.
It's on borrowed time, yes. But I don't want to borrow money to replace it, right? And so we've sort of been looking and, thinking ahead and trying to figure out, okay, when that happens, what's our plan? And so part of that is some of it's about what's the amount of money that you might have available to you right away. What's the amount of money that you may be able to access through friends and family and other networks? And then if something that you can sort of plan for, like a refrigerator, to start looking at, okay, if this happens, what will I do? And what are the prices? What's a good price? When do they go on sale? That kind of thing.
Well, and that's the other thing is learning to know when something's going to come up so that you can start looking for those deals, the lowest price, and the features you want. Because I always think about that with like the furnace or the water heater. When those go out, it's an emergency and you just have to get whatever you can find. You're not able to do the research.
Right.
If you know that you have something that may be coming up that needs to be done with your car or whatever, you have a little bit more opportunity to do some fact-finding.
Right. And really, when we have time to be good consumers and sort of do the consumer shopping process, which is typically comparing 3 options that are true options and then deciding which is the best one for us, typically we end up spending less. So once you sort of have figured out with this financial well-being scale where you're at, and then you've had a chance to kind of think about what is your vision and maybe start thinking about some goals and how that might actually impact your day-to-day spending, we do have another resource that is a full-blown kind of financial checkup. And it's, again, a quiz. You look at your financial management, your saving and investing behavior, insurance and estate planning, using credit, and then shopping. And actually, one of the shopping items is comparison shopping for major purchases by checking at least 3 sources. If you were to do the financial checkup, some of the things you might do are to create a net worth statement or to revise or update a net worth statement. And a net worth statement takes your total assets, everything you own, and subtracts everything you owe, and you get a dollar figure that's hopefully positive. But if it's not positive, for example, if you have a lot of credit card debt, it may be negative, then it gives you an idea about what areas you might want to focus on.
Does student loan debt fit into that too?
Student loan debt can fit in overall. On this form, there is a place for education loans, so you might include that. Typically, we want to be honest with ourselves, and I would actually include a mortgage and student loan debt, medical debt, just to get a picture. Might be kind of scary, and it's not meant to depress. It's just to recognize where we're at and then help us identify some priorities.
I think the key there is the honesty factor, because if you're routinely spending $150 a week at the grocery store, but you say you're only spending $100, you've got a huge shortfall.
Now, the spending wouldn't actually be part of the net worth. That would be part of your budget. But yes, I think it's true. It's also, if you already keep a budget, The end of the year is a really good time to review, to see if you're sort of on track with what you think you're spending. Food is one that can creep up on us. The end of the year is also a really good time to think about planning ahead for if you're going to take a vacation in the summer, to think about how are you going to pay for that, and maybe start getting a plan for setting some money aside slowly. I also have vivid memories of my mother. Every year on New Year's Day, she'd get her previous year calendar and her current year calendar, and she would go through and she'd add all the birthdays and all the special events, and she would start planning her time. And I think we often focus on end of year sort of financial reflection, but it can also be a really good time to reflect on how we use our time.
There's some life changes that occur, too. I know we've got a son who's moved to Kansas City, so we're spending a lot more time on the road, something that we never budgeted for in the past, but have to now. And we're more of empty nesters now, so we're buying a lot less food.
Right. That's a really good point, that as you have family changes, your spending will adapt to that. And so you have fewer people as an empty nester in your home, but yet you're spending money that you didn't otherwise spend traveling. That's another reason why, if you don't do it at the end of the year, sometime, whatever time makes sense, on a somewhat regular but periodic basis, review your spending and your priorities. So by going to Kansas City, you are illustrating one of your priorities is to visit and maintain that family connection.
The other thing that I like about the financial checkup is the fact that it is an overall view. You're talking about your insurance, something that nobody really likes to do, but that yearly conversation with your agent could save you quite a bit of money.
It could save you some money, either through premiums, but also it could save you some money out of your pocket if you sort of rebalance your deductibles and your coverage. Because if you're underinsured and something happens, for example, to your home, in order to repair your home, that might come out of your pocket. And again, maybe not the end of the year for all of these things. So, for example, those of us who get our health insurance through our employer maybe had our open enrollment period in October. So we can say, okay, we've already reviewed our health insurance. We know what's coming up for 2018. You might want to, if you have a retirement plan, review your balances. Think about if you're on track for whatever your goals are, whatever your anticipated retirement date is. Most of us, well, maybe not most of us, many of us are likely not on track. And so it could be an opportunity as you think about what's your vision for the good life, what your goals are, what small changes you might make to achieve your goals, to review. Maybe you can start putting aside even $25, $50 more a month into retirement. When you actually get to retirement, can make a difference.
And those small steps, when you achieve success, really help build some momentum, I think, too, in terms of being able to, well, I was able to save this much this month. I think I can save a little bit more next month. And as you see that growing, it becomes a little easier.
I think it really does. And we all want to succeed and feel competent and confident, right? And so some of these small steps, it's really the building blocks. We often think about this big sweeping actions that we could take, which are hard to maintain. But think about the small things. A bunch of small things over time add up. And sometimes we think about that in terms of debt reduction. There's a program called PowerPay. It's powerpay.org, and you can go there and you can enter your debt information, and it will show you how long it will take you to pay off your debts. There's an option where you can put a lump sum in, right? So if you get a tax refund or a windfall, like a bonus or something like that. But really, increasing your monthly debt repayments, even a small amount, can have a bigger impact on how long it takes you to pay it off than these one-time bigger lump sums.
That's K-State Research and Extension Financial Management Specialist Elizabeth Kish. The Extension publications, Spend Some, Save Some, Share Some, and How Are You Doing a Financial Checkup are available through the KSRE bookstore and all county and district extension offices. Sound Living is a weekly public affairs program produced by Research and Extension at Kansas State University. I'm Jeff Wichman, and this is the K-State Radio Network.